Rev up your excitement as we dive into an electrifying journey. Meet the astonishing electric Volga, a vintage legend reborn as a cutting-edge electric wonder. 5 years of dedication, 6 million invested. Witness the remarkable transformation of this timeless masterpiece into an electric symphony. Brace yourself to be amazed as we embark on a journey that defies time and sparks a new era of automotive marvels. Ladies and gentlemen, let's mark today's date. It's January 25th, 2018, and the Volga is making its way through the heart of St. Petersburg. Next time around, I'll tackle this spot under its own power. What do you say? We make a wish for Victory Day. Hello everyone! Today is May 9th, and I want to give you all a heartfelt congratulations on this monumental holiday, Victory Day. It's a day of victory, and today I've got my own little celebration going on. Of course, there is no comparison to the grand victory, but finally from 2018 onward, folks, I promised you that the electric Volga would be ready by May 9th, 2023. Well, today's the day, and the video you've all been waiting for is out. So here it is, folks. The electric Volga is ready. Now let's go back to the year 2018, or maybe even a bit earlier. There was no Betancourt Bridge yet. Imagine that, my friends. We bought this car right near the bridge construction site. The Betancourt Bridge wasn't even there, just some pillars reaching for the sky. By some miracle, I managed to pick up this Volga for around 50,000 rubles, maybe even less. It was practically a junkyard find, in a rust bucket state, but with no legal transfer for ownership. We tracked down the previous owner, a grandpa. I hope he's still going strong, and managed to sort out the paperwork. Back then, the Volga came to us on a tow truck, just as you saw it on YouTube. Basically a shell with license plates, necessary for registration purposes. Everything went according to plan, and I officially became the proud owner of a second-generation 1960 Volga. From that moment on, I tried to figure out how I could fix up this car with the resources I had at hand. The engine was seized, and back then, I asked you viewers for your input. What should we do with this Volga? Classic restoration or a V8 project? By the way, at the time, there weren't any real challenges. We could have just slapped in the Volvo engine, maybe upgraded the suspension a bit and gone with the classic route. The car would have been ready in about a half year. But then there was an option of diving into the electric car craze, which wasn't too popular back then. It was like an internet meme in Russia. As it is today, electric cars haven't exactly taken over the scene here. If you look at sales statistics, you'll see what I mean. But back in 2018, it was all a bit meme-worthy and novel. So we decided to go with what's known as a resto mode. That means keeping everything that relates to the car's aesthetics and interior. even some of the original mechanics, like the suspension. The only thing we changed was the engine. And so it began. Oh, and by the way, not many noticed, but in this series, the Volga is heading downtown for the first time. You know why? Because for the first time, it can actually make it there. Seriously, before we put in batteries, the ones we got from donors. The average distance the car could cover on the charge was about 30, maybe 40 kilometers, but we didn't test it extensively. To avoid ending up in that situation, you need to go through the standard procedure that's soon going to be the norm for all electric car owners. You see, an essential part of any electric car is the battery. It doesn't matter what the composition is. What matters is that it's made up of chemical elements that start reacting from the moment the battery is manufactured. Even if you never drive anywhere and your electric car just sits in a cool, dry place on a charger, this reaction continues. This means that after 7 years, your precious battery will have around 60–70% of its capacity left. And after 12 years, the battery needs a full replacement. No intervention, no partial replacement of cells, nothing will save you. At that point, you're looking at shelling out 530,000 rubles for a new battery, in our case. Alright, let me share some crucial details that I would have never noticed if I'd just taken the car from the shop and started filming right away. Here is a secret for you. Usually, that's what we do with our projects because deadlines are always tight. But thank goodness, we planned the Volga's debut for May 9th. We actually picked it up way in advance, about 3 weeks ago probably. And then I spent a week driving it extensively. You've probably seen that on my social media. During that time, we discovered a number of issues. One of them was a bit inconspicuous to viewers, but it was definitely there. The car was rigid and tended to follow the grooves in the road. Turns out it was mainly due to the tires, 250–65. Those are pretty standard tires and often chosen by Volga enthusiasts. You can spot them everywhere, but it was just too rigid. I even posted photos on my social media, asking if the tires looked a bit narrow. You see, the car was sitting low, and the wide tires looked a bit unusual for a 1960s vehicle. I wanted the style to be fierce. And there was another thing that bothered me, the rear mudguards. They were narrower than the tire itself. It just looked odd, the original mudguards with the gas Volga emblem, and then this tire wider than the truck's. That wasn't how it was supposed to be from the factory, of course. So I started googling, and huge thanks to Volga forums that already existed, and were dated around the same time as the birth of the World Wide Web. Yes, the internet was around even then, and there was a clear explanation there. 215 tires rigid, 195 tires flexible. With that in mind, we began the search. And let me tell you, finding 195 to 80 tires is tough. Ideally even higher, and finding something like 185 to 85. Those just don't exist, not even in the size range of truck tires. So what we found was the Continental Contact, also known as the 4x4. Yeah, and it's on the Volga now, but still, it's soft, high rubber, just like I wanted. And it immediately made a difference. First of all, the steering became lighter. Remember, we don't have power steering. The car is authentic with the original steering, and it became smooth, like really smooth, and even a bit quieter. And on rough roads, this car is a champ now. You can hit 40–45 miles per hour on dirt roads, where I wouldn't go faster than 30 miles per hour in my Range Rover. In other words, the car has become what it was originally designed to be by the factory. It's perfect now. The batteries, as you may have guessed, are still located in the trunk, but now both the trunk and the batteries have a completely different purpose and appearance. The trunk now looks quite stylish. It's been decked out with even laminate flooring for that cozy, homely touch. Of course, behind this setup are the batteries. We've got the traditional home charging port here on this panel, and right next to it is the emergency circuit breaker, a CGK switch that allows you to disconnect the main traction battery from the rest of the car's electrical system. Furthermore, since our car is now equipped with a pneumatic suspension, if we open this heating compartment, we'll find the compressor and the pneumatic system's receiver. By the way, the main traction battery, if you're curious, is a Chinese-made 400-volt unit from a company called Avic. It's a nickel-magnesium-cobalt battery with a new capacity. Due to its lighter and denser construction, it now packs around 40–50 kWh, which translates to a real-world city range of 120–150 kilometers, maybe even more. To be honest, I haven't tried pushing to its limit yet. In my real-world driving over 2–3 days, I still had about 130 kilometers of range left, according to the stock gauge. The gauge seems accurate, but I guess I should do a proper test and drive it until it's empty. But right now, we don't have this task. But this is much more positive. Now your every need for a day in the city and even outside the city, they are definitely satisfied. And by the way, one important clarification. These 120 kilometers I mentioned earlier, they were achieved in heavy traffic. I spent about an hour and a half each way, and it was around 5 degrees Celsius. The heater was constantly running. And before setting off in this car, I would come out to my yard, turn the ignition key and let the heater run at full blast for 15 minutes. Electric car enthusiasts know that heaters consume a lot of electricity. If you're using the heater, it's around 120–150 kilometers on a single charge. So in the summer, without the heater, you could probably hit 150–180 kilometers. Even if suddenly for some reason on the Volga in the city you do not have enough of these 150–180 kilometers of power reserve, which by the way sometimes happens to me, I think when we lowered the boat, I drove a Range Rover 220 kilometers a day, and it was a city. Then in any case, there are public charges. And here's the paradox. Public charging is no longer free. It costs 22 rubles per kilowatt-hour. All those people who thought they were gaming the system by buying a cheap, beat-up Nissan Leaf with a depleted battery and driving on the cheap now can't charge here anymore. With this new pricing, a Nissan Leaf actually costs more to run than a gasoline car, which is kind of ironic. Because you now need to charge strictly at home. Therefore, all these charges are now always empty. Remember, in the last series, we drove around one, the other, and now everything is fine. No one needs this junk for money anymore. But in this case of the electric Volga, of course the situation is different, because you're at the junction of the universe and get high from the very fact that you can drive up to the electric charger, take the charger and insert it into the Volga, and get this most magnificent picture. Then we launch the app, Money into Battle. Just a second. We're at the location here. We're detected. Let's see. Let's start charging. There is always a risk that something will go wrong. Please turn on, and attention to the deer. Preparation for the charging process. Setting up communication with the car. Blinked already? What a beauty! It turns out that even in this case, on an electro Volga, with a small power reserve, you can still turn out to be immortal in the city. All charges are now free and empty. Drive up, charge up, and we will charge the full battery in 40 minutes. And we will continue driving. After our initial drives, we encountered a small problem that we didn't immediately realize. Even in the last video we talked about. Our battery pack is located at the rear, which has been a topic of discussion due to the changed weight distribution. Not only are the batteries now at the back, they are also located outside the wheelbase. Following the battery replacement, they have become more compact and lighter, around 80 to 100 kilograms lighter, despite being active batteries with coolant system. This is because modern technology keeps advancing. As a result, our weight distribution has shifted completely towards the rear. The battery now sits squarely on the rear axle. However, this also means an additional weight of 200 kilograms on the rear axle, resting on the leaf springs and without factory provisions. Previously, there was a fuel tank here, which could sometimes carry 9 liters of gasoline or other cargo. Also, there could be up to 3 passengers in the back and miscellaneous items. Now there is an additional 200 kilograms of weight on the axle that needed to be addressed. Initially, the car became too soft and sat so low that the drive shaft was hitting the road, and the car was bouncing on every bump. To solve this, we raised the car, reinforced the suspension, and replaced the leaf springs. However, the car became stiff. At this point, a decision had to be made, whether or not to modify the suspension, but add supporting pneumatic elements. Okay, we lifted the car, we strengthened the suspension, inserted new springs and so on. What happened? The car became rigid. We had a problem again. The car is standing as it is now, everything is great, the extra weight of the batteries no longer bothers, but it jumps on every pit. And here the final decision was made. Not to alter the suspension, leave this bridge, leave the springs, but add pneumatics. I'm not sure if you're experts or just viewers can notice, but there is a non-stick part sticking out here. Personally, it bothers me slightly. Maybe we'll move away from this in the future, but as you can see from the overlay in this video, the traction bar protrudes below. The same is done on the other side. This was done to improve the car's behavior on the roads. Perhaps due to sandblasting or the existing leaf springs, the car's behavior on the roads was compromised. The old soft leaf springs were placed because stiff springs are not needed here. Probably the stiff springs start to sag after a certain distance, a common situation for leaf spring suspensions. This isn't unique to the Volga from 21, as other cars also face the issue. So a pneumatic suspension was added in supporting modes, working at the lowest pressure. It has a body position sensor. When 3 people sit in the back, the body sags. The sensor detects this and the pneumatic suspension inflates to return the body to its normal position. The Volga always stays at the same level, neither higher nor lower. So the additional weight doesn't bother it anymore, even if it had loaded with 500 kilograms in the back. The compressor works, the airbags fill up, and the car levels itself. The car performs as it should. The issue with the leaf springs has been resolved. Additionally, the car now has a much better response to the road. It bounces less on bumps. This was also helped by the narrower 195 tires. Moreover, the slight play in the steering shaft has been reduced. The most important factor, however, is the traction bars. Now, during acceleration, the car behaves adequately. If you push the throttle to the floor, it doesn't start weaving like before. Keep in mind, we're talking about 105 horsepower. There is no unbridled power that would cause the body to sway. The previous issues were primarily due to the old leaf spring suspension. That's it, we started. Do you hear it? It's the heater. So here's the deal. The heater's radiator is positioned so high up, like right under the hood, that no matter what you do, the expansion tank up front in UFA can't be higher than this tank. So when you start up initially, there is always this sound like the radiator is getting a good go. After that, you barely hear that sound anymore. But it's like we're always riding and everyone wants to buckle up. Still can't do much about that. We turn on the headlights, they're on, and suddenly there's interference in the sound. We try to get rid of that interference to make it all nice and smooth, you know? Well, didn't work out. Wanna know why? Because no car filter designed for a 12-volt generator can handle this 400-volt inverter they got going on here. And those car audio filters we bought, no matter which ones, they don't get rid of this, you know, these things. And if you try turning up the volume, they practically vanish. So these interferences are impossible to remove. Seriously, we head to the auto store, get those car components that we have been with us forever. Yeah, they don't work here. Everything's different here, with electric movement and oh, it's genius, really. Like the loudest thing is the heater. Look, even though they made it quiet, looped it up, putting on a non-original motor, you can still hear it. Because you see, in electric cars, it's the only thing that's actually spinning and making noise when idling, so you hear it up. Let's roll up the windows. When you start driving, sure, all the other sounds wake up. Because it turns out even the Volga's axle isn't whisper quiet. It's got this distinct tire on a salt sound. But you won't catch any of this if you're in a modern electric car with its soundproofing. Here there is none of that, and nobody really bothered to make any, because it's still a Volga. Well, you get used to that, it's perfectly normal. But if you push it further, like the hum of the suspension, all the sounds, they're really just strange. You can hear the entire organism of this Volga at work. It's not even a mechanism, it's like a semi-living thing. You press down, the wind gets in every crack, and all of this is perfectly normal. Here it's not annoying at all. This car isn't built for high-speed races or crazy driving, or to show off any records. So when you start hearing things here, it doesn't really cause any discomfort. You drive calmly. It's steady. You can even let go of the steering wheel without it wobbling. Now, during the road test period, we had to return twice because of some sparking issue. I'd pick up the car, drive it, then return it, then pick it up again, and so on. But in the end, it drives smoothly. Even though it's a Volga, and the only thing added to the chassis are those traction bars, everyone still struggles to overtake us. You see, you can't really be on the same level as a Volga. It's just how it is. We still don't know its top speed or acceleration times, but it doesn't matter. It's just a Volga. Good day. And that's mutual. Thanks. Thanks. Thanks, hello. Why does everyone talk to me? I don't know how it happens, but I can't put in words how many people look at us. Not everyone look at us, just everything that can move in this life. Anyone who's got eyes, really. In our videos, we've driven many different, sometimes strange cars, and the Volga, in my opinion, well, it's like a stock car. Doesn't look super wild, right? But still, it grabs an incredible amount of attention day and night, and everything else. Listen, they really fine-tuned the suspension. Now it's not stiff, doesn't rock. We changed the shocks twice, putting new ones in each time. You won't believe it, we initially used front shocks from a Niva, but the car bounced around like a ball. Then we put in rear shocks from a Niva, and everything calmed down. Well, how comfortable can it be in a car from the 60s? You might wonder. Let me put it this way. We even have drum brakes at the back. To give you an idea of how authentic it's all this. But despite that, it's surprisingly pleasant. I constantly drive around like this. The main thing about this car is that you never get tired in traffic. Not at all. It's a paradox. You're in an old car, a very old one from 1963. Hang on a sec. It's really seen its days, and yet it's comfortable in traffic. You know why? Because you never sit in one position. You can sit, then move around. You can shift right and left however you like. The seat is flat. Essentially, when you're stuck in traffic, you're not in a car. You're at home on a couch, having a conversation as you just experienced. Yeah, with everyone around you in the traffic jam. It doesn't matter if they recognize you or not, people do take notice. It's a Volga after all. It starts greeting people who don't even know you. In the past, back when there weren't many cars on the roads, my father and grandfather used to tell me, I don't remember this myself, that drivers would wave at each other on the road. Situations like that occurred. But now you can experience this when you come across club cars. Like when I'm driving my Wagon and I meet another one. And with the Volga, everyone greets you as if they're in a Volga too, or they've met a fellow club member. It's a fantastically positive car that captures all the attention. It's amazing. You don't have to be angry, you don't have to be insanely technologically advanced. It doesn't look super luxurious, but the two main audiences, the most significant ones, are those alternative folks who will be looking at you and people over 60. These are the people who have driven this car and those already have everything. And they're like, this is what we need. That's another constant. I'm just standing in traffic and to my left there is a Maybach with a chauffeur. He rolls down the rear window, the Maybach owner starts looking at me like, hey man, tell me briefly about the car. I'm speechless. This is one of the best cars I've ever had. When I've been driving it this past week, yes, it doesn't have air conditioning. Sure, the vinyl makes your back sweet, and after just half an hour, I'm already feeling it. It's hard to sit in one position. There is always something that doesn't quite fit. But despite all this, the amount of goodness and positivity it radiates is indescribable. You absorb something from it that can be put into words. And the most important thing is how genuine this interaction is. Like how I'm sitting here talking to you. It's incomparable to driving a car. It's like we're sitting comfortably in a room, on armchairs, having a conversation like you would at home. This constant thing. And that's why it's sometimes incredible in this combination. They've taken away a lot of what can be problematic in a 21 Volga. You know, this misaligned gear shifter, the engine that chugs along, that smoke smell and so on. Of course, many love that smell of 76, especially if you fill it up properly to get that here. It's like pure bliss. Most of the shortcomings of the 21 Volga have been addressed, and what remains are the things that make you remember it from back then. Plus, they've added everything that helps you in real life and traveling. It's like, I don't know, it's probably that golden ratio for restorers. What's a restorer? Well, we all know it's when you take a classic car body and mix it with a new technology. But here, you've got the minimum of those new technologies you need, and the maximum of what warm, cozy, vintage feeling, just how it should be in the 21st century.
Все вокруг молчит об одном, о том, что я.
During the day, the Volga is just awesome. Sometimes those halogen headlights look a bit odd during the day, and you can't always tell if they are on or not, since they are a bit dim. But driving the Volga at night is a different kind of warmth and vintage experience. It's something crazy. You put on music that suits the car's vibe, and you're completely at ease. A working speed of 40 to 60 is all you need. You automatically stop rushing anywhere. Everything is great. There is no fatigue. Steering at this speed is quite comfortable, soft, and the heater keeps you warm. The noise is traditional, not more than usual, and everything becomes really cool. And from an outsider's perspective, it looks fantastically appealing. The most important thing, guys, is to tell you about the prices. Multiple times, probably the most frequently asked questions of camera is how much did it cost? Usually when people ask about the price, I link it to the fact that this is a restoration that can't be replicated. Let me explain to you in simple terms. The car was bought in the form of an island with documents. It didn't exist as a whole. The paint job alone cost over 1 million rubles, maybe even more. The interior too. And here's the problem – completeness. When you buy an old car, its main challenge is the completeness. Every single part you see here, we bought for a lot of money. For example, these lamps today cost about 5,000 rubles. If it's incomplete, without the base, the complete set in good condition is around 9 or 10,000 rubles. You have to search for it. It's not available just around the corner at the nearest store. That red plastic piece with the reindeer on the hood cost 3,000 rubles, and you need to buy the trim separately for another 2,500 rubles. A steering wheel in good condition is around 8,000 rubles, and it won't even have the central part. You'll need to buy that separately for 2,500 rubles. And mind you, the central part is different for each series. For the first, second, and third series, each has its own design. For example, the bumpers also. If you happen to find them for around 5,000, don't worry. These are for the third series. Well, ours is the second series, and we have the fangs. That's why these beaten-up bumpers cost around 20,000. If you find them in perfect condition or with some extra chrome, the price could even reach 100,000. Because you also need a set of mounts, special skirts, plugs, and other things for these bumpers. And we're just getting started. Those little details like fittings, handles, bulbs, trims, those headlight glasses, turn signals, radiator grills, they cost a fortune. I'm not even talking about the restoration, the bodywork, or some wheels and tires. Glass is cheap, though. It's all around 500 rubles each. Interestingly, the suspension axles and other parts like that are not expensive. Just to be fair, let's say the stock steerer cost around 15,000 rubles. So adding everything up quickly, we didn't account for about 200,000 rubles. We haven't considered things like moldings, chrome trim on the sills, mirror caps, door handles, bulbs. We haven't even accounted for things like that bird on the Volga's trunk. For instance, the lights, tail lamps and glass, there was nothing. The car was bought in the state of an island, and everything you see here was bought anew. Wiper blades, washer nozzles, you can keep listing this endlessly. I should list every screw of this car in front of you. So if we say the total cost of the project is around 6 million rubles, we won't be wrong. Possibly a bit less, but definitely not more. After a certain point, I honestly stopped counting, especially when I mentioned earlier in this video that we bought it for 530,000 rubles just the batteries, repacking them and installing the pneumatic system, and so on and so forth endlessly. It drags you in, drags you in, drags you in. That's why it's definitely not less than 6 million. And you can go on online marketplaces and buy Volga in museum condition for about 3 or maybe 4 million rubles. If it's a Volga with a history, and under rare exceptions, it might reach 5 million. This is what makes this restoration impossible. Because apart from the restoration, there were also arrests, modifications, the car's transformation into an electric one. So all combined, firstly, it doesn't make sense. It won't have demand in the market, and therefore nobody else except for me will repeat this. Not because it's incredibly difficult or complex, but simply because there is no point in it. But on the other hand, this is my path that I've gone through, and I think that no one else will be able to go through it, including me. Can I call it useful experience? It's a rather questionable question, but nevertheless, it's an experience that strengthens character, the desire to earn, and the determination to never give up. Because I know that this all started more than 5 years ago. And once I said that the last video won't be released on May 9th, it was released. And to say that we made the Volga in just 6 months, and that was the end of it, that's not the case. The Volga came from the workshop. It returned this morning before the shoot. Yes, I've done test drives and everything. The car had come to me already, but it's still a job, guys, and this is worth a lot. Further on, whatever I do, it will be easier. Even though the S4 was in some aspects easier, emotionally and in terms of investment. Right now, in the moment, it took only a year and 2 months. But this thing took 5 years. So, many won't be able to repeat this due to time constraints, from what I can see. This project didn't fit into the usual 2-3 year restoration period. It took 5. And getting such a drawn-out long-term project out of the tailspin is also very complex. Of course, I wasn't alone. A huge number of people helped me, and I have to say a big thank you and bow to them. And to all of you, a huge thank you for still watching it all these years. Well, many thanks to the man who once gave me this deer for my birthday. And through all these thorns, the deer is still like me. 2 deer came in a hurry. Both of you deer have come to success. What can I do? Thank you all for watching. Good luck to all of you, as well as to me with this Volga, and so far.